at the farm when we moved up here was a lot about helping the individual businesses, be successful. The farm was sort of an overarching brand and business, but all of the entities on the site up here in Byron were running their own business. So I spent a lot of time coaching and helping, businesses, succeed, because that was the outcome of the actual farm was predicated off the successful the micro business.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Better Business, Better Life. Today I am joined by fellow EOS implementer Ryan Sharpley, who is based up in Byron Bay, which is a beautiful part of the world over in Australia. And Ryan is the founder of Purpose People, which is all about helping people live their best lives. But before that, he has been a business owner for quite some years. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for having me today.
Absolute pleasure. So I would love the people to hear your story, because it's not a straight line journey, is it? So tell us a little bit about, where you've come from, where you are today, and I guess also what you're most proud of in that journey as well.
Yep. So we have had a bit of not a straight line to get us living in Byron Bay as a family. We're originally out of Melbourne. We moved up to Byron half a dozen years ago after running and owning a few different businesses in Melbourne. The business that we really cut our teeth in was a manufacturing business in Melbourne. We ran that business, or worked in that business, for a dozen or so years, and that was in printing. So I used to look after the technology and the customer service and logistics area of those business. And through that time, we started in the late 90s. It was, I suppose, the story of it was an industry that needed a little bit of a shift. So we had the opportunity to create a greenfield site. So we had all the new and shiny and toys that allowed us to, have great quality, great customer service, and sort of bring that as a new offering into the actual market. And the business grew really quickly. What we found over that, we were all quite young and enthusiastic, and, there was more sort of opportunities and growth that we could really, handle at the time. So we just kept on sort of crawling back and keeping that growing as we went along. What we did notice over a period of time was the systems and structure that we sort of kept on having to reintroduce and build out for the business to grow. It was a bit of a challenging period running through GFC, etc. We were printing retail catalogues and magazines, so the customer demands were pretty intensive. And over time we got to a stage that it was great business. We sort of people get married, and it was a real sort of family orientated business. And that was really the I suppose the start of our business journey primarily.
Fantastic. And so you moved on from there. So what happened?
So I went back and studied in, 2010, 11? It seems like a bit of a blur. We had 3 young kids, and I was really looking at what was sort of, how do I start to formalise some of the skills that we were actually using within the printing business? So I went back and did a master's, which was great, and it was I suppose the eye-opening sort of aspects of being amongst 30 or 35 peers of across different industries. And I look back now, and it was really a bit of an eye-opening sort of perspective, because I did have blinkers on. The whole world revolved around our business that we've been involved in, and just being exposed to so many other people in different industries and professions. That sort of led me to think about what was next for us as a family, but also me as a professional as well. So through that time, I started working with a mentor, and we, started to craft a bit of a plan to look about what was next out of the printing industry. I'd always been in technology and design, and through that was, got to a stage that it probably wasn't as fulfilling as what I had hoped for after that period of time, and started to explore other options. And, from that led I suppose the realisation of that sort of deep connection to community and people was probably the part that was lacking. So working on a bit of a plan to actually get out of the business and, maybe develop a business that was a bit more sort of family orientated or owned and operated. And that's coincidentally what we did.
So what was it you went into? Because it was quite different from printing, right?
Yeah, completely different, absolutely. So it was not quite the Matt Damon bought a zoo, but we ended up buying a farm down on the peninsula in Melbourne, and there was a
Wow.
small produce farm, and having never grown any fruit or produce, commercially. We'd had an interest in food and community, obviously, but we had never grown anything, for a living. So it was a bit of a vertical learning curve. But yeah, we found a little property on the peninsula and bought that and moved down there. So it was a bit of a quirky sort of little business. It had a 100-year-old train carriage on the site, which was the actual shop. So that was where people would come in and buy their produce on weekends, and the grounds were sort of exceptional. The previous owners were botanists, so it was like walking around botanical gardens, which is what we sort of fell in love with to begin with. So the experience that people would have, that they would come in and walk around the gardens, and we had goats, pigs, chickens, all sorts of animals running around, and then they'd buy their produce. We'd grow that on our property, but also aggregate it within the local farms on the peninsula. And then over a handful of years, that business sort of grew. We developed a food providering business where we're selling food into restaurants. We had a mushroom growing business as well, or sort of urban mushrooms, where we'd grow different types of mushrooms. We had aquaponics, education, all these sort of little aspects that sort of were interrelated. And, it was a great experience. But that's where we sort of shifted out of after the printing business, which was not a straight line. If you think back from IT and transport through to,
Yes.
growing vegetables, there's nothing that's similar other than, I suppose the systems and processes, but completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? I mean, I've worked in many different industries myself, and although every industry is quite unique, the general business principles still remain the same, right? You need to have the right people, you need to have the right process, all that sort of thing, no matter what you do.
Very true. I remember,
but that was Melbourne. So how did we get to Byron Bay?
Yeah, so that was in Melbourne. We shared our stories on socials. This was sort of at the start of Facebook sort of marketing, and we were quite open and transparent with our triumphs and tribulations on the farm, and probably more challenges than triumphs, in all honesty, given the learning that we're going through. And there was a similar business up called the farm in Byron Bay, and the owners of the farm saw sort of what we were doing on our socials and connected with us one day, and we sort of decided to join forces. And the farm was a larger sort of version of what we were doing in Melbourne. They had a restaurant, bakery, and other sort of more substantial businesses running on the premises. We're a junior version of what is up here, and got to know Tom and Emma, who were the owners of that business. And it was the right time. We'd sort of, I suppose, a serial entrepreneur, we'd grown what we could down in Melbourne, and we're looking for our next adventure. So it was the right time. With the kids were still in primary school, so we decided to. Tom said, come up and let's join forces and see what we can do together up here. So it was a great time to sort of shift the kids and move up into this region, which we, honeymooned and holidayed up here before. So a bit of an adventure to actually to live up here, which we did.
Oh, cool. And so EOS, so you're now an EOS implementer. Tell me how you came across EOS and what was it that actually appealed to you about it?
Yeah, so within our printing business, one of the early implementers, Dan Williams, was the CEO at the time of an IT business that helped us in our IT sort of capacity. So I'd heard about this sort of, orange magic, system that existed way back when we were in our printing business, and never really explored it other than just knowing about how much positive impact that had within their business. My role at the farm when we moved up here was a lot about helping the individual businesses, be successful. The farm was sort of an overarching brand and business, but all of the entities on the site up here in Byron were running their own business. So I spent a lot of time coaching and helping, businesses succeed, because that was the outcome of the actual farm was predicated off the success of all the micro businesses. So when the business was sold up here, I was conscious to look to, what did I actually love and enjoy doing, which, was really helping people. That was what I really fulfilled me. So it was a combination of knowing about EOS from the printing days, working out that desire to actually help business owners, improve their business, and putting the two together. And I was conscious to look at a system or a process that was proven as well. I've sort of experienced bad versions of, I didn't want to be a consultant that was sort of the PowerPoint sort of person. I wanted to actually make meaningful change, and that's where I think this system, seeing the results of what it had done with businesses that I'd worked with, that's what made me sort of lead down the path of EOS.
So looking back on the printing business, perhaps, like what would have been one of the tools that could have really helped in that business, one of the EOS tools?
Oh, it's hard to pick just one. If I'm being honest, I look at what we did with, the structure and process. We went to the point of probably over systemising and complicating the business. So, we're an entrepreneurial sized business of, 140 to 150 people in the end. The systems and processes were needed to be there because of the actual, consistency of the product, but we probably went too far. I think the whole system within EOS, the process component would have been a huge one. The accountability chart, which is one of my favourites as far as providing clarity within people's roles, that would also have been, we ran a traditional organisation chart, which, as you know, is completely different to an accountability chart. Level 10 meetings, the meeting structure wasn't the same. So there was, I think back now, I wish you could rewind time and, know what you know now and actually, reintroduce it back then. But yeah, probably the accountability chart and the process component would be the two key aspects of the model we would have looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're now working with a whole bunch of different businesses, helping them with EOS. What do you sort of see in the people that you're working with? I mean, it's sort of, I know that with the companies I work with, often there's this sort of, it's a next bright, shiny object. And it's only really when they start to get into using EOS on a regular basis, they realise that actually this is a game changer, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest one that I've noticed starting with businesses is the transparency that it offers. The clarity within new teams, or, there's so many things that people probably know within their business, but it actually is like shining a light, and starting solving those issues once and for all as well. So, the transparency and accountability, that's probably the biggest, feedback sort of piece that I get when starting within the journey. There's a lot of ideas that people have had that, they haven't been able to put into a form that they can communicate or transpose. So they've had all of these ideas that sort of, rattling around in their head, and that sort of really focuses and puts them into a place where it can be, put into a structure that sort of makes sense and is communicable across the rest of the business.
It's true. I've actually just been, the reason I'm in a different room today is I've actually just been privileged to sit through a level 10 meeting with one of my clients. And I'm actually sitting in their boardroom at the moment finishing off this podcast. But it was really great to see that they've now been doing this for a little bit over 6 months, I think. Yeah. And just that clarity that comes out of those level 10 meetings. And, they're actually getting through their issues. They've got things on track. They know exactly what they're being held accountable for with their scorecard, with their rocks. It's just it's a joy to watch.
Yeah. Oh, look, and the level 10 meeting is a game changer, no doubt.
Yeah.
We've all been in so many meetings where we've sat around for, 1, 2 or 3 hours, and you walk out and think, well, hang on, what did we actually solve, or what did we actually do? And the clarity and the prioritisation through the level 10 and how effective they are. That meeting format is phenomenal once it's actually rolled out, and it's a game changer.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, but Guy, thinking back to your own business, what are the biggest challenges you faced in your business?
I think some of I'm at heart probably a bit of a perfectionist, so not having things organised, and my impatience and sort of, wanting to actually just wait for things to roll out. That's probably been my biggest one of my biggest challenges, making sure that, there is an adequate time for actually things to happen, or businesses to, ideas to sort of percolate and roll through, and not just wanting them done, straight away. So, and I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Accepting help as well. There's always been, I welcome help when, I don't sort of shy away from it, but I'm rare to actually ask people for help. So that's been a bit of a challenge for me as well, because there's been so many times where, you probably duck on a pond and, starting to sink, and things aren't sort of organised or set up the way that you want to. But, so perfectionism and asking for help, they're probably a couple of challenges that I can relate to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so do you consider yourself a visionary? Were you a visionary in your businesses?
Probably more integrator, but
okay.
the visionary, probably a dangerous visionary, because of certainly traits of visionary as far as the ideas and where we need to go, but execution is where I spend a lot of time. And even now, truth be told, I'm still grappling with, asking for help and doing things the right way as well. So, I think it's a consistent journey that we're all on to improve, as opposed to saying we're ever the best version of what we can do. So,
yeah. But I did hear you say earlier on when we were chatting that you did get a mentor on board at some point. So what changed? How come you suddenly reached out and asked for help and got somebody to mentor you?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so when I was studying, it was one of my leadership coaches or professors that we sort of were working with, and that was a fundamental shift in. She really pushed me and tested me as far as quite direct and quite firm, which was a great approach that I could relate to. I was probably just floundering. I didn't really, we're at the stage of the business where we're, 10 or so years in, wondering what's next. And, I think she read it maybe through some of my papers that I was writing. So, we connected over a few coffees, and, it was a great sort of to have that support and just someone to call it for what it is, and really put me back on the straight and narrow. But that was a great sort of experience with her, and still friends with her today. So we catch up regularly, really important person in my world.
I want to explore the name of your business, Purpose People. There's something behind that, isn't there? What is driving you these days?
Well, I think Purpose People, for me, what that means, I love working with businesses and people that have got purpose and impacts that are baked into their way of going about things. I've had a little bit of exposure and experience within the B Corp community, and the B Corp movement is really that the premise is that business can be a force for good. So, which I do believe in strongly, that people can have a successful business, it can be profitable, but it can also be doing no harm along the way as well. So purpose is making sure that that's that sort of connection back into what is the purpose and the actual output and the intent of the organisation, how people behave and go about achieving their outcomes. And that's what really drives me. I'm really blessed and grateful for the opportunity with the clients that I'm working with now, that they are fantastic businesses. They're, doing the right things. They're, willing to roll their sleeves up. I just get a real joy and real kick out of helping them day in, day out.
I mean, it ties in with the whole EOS life thing too, doesn't it? I mean, it's all about making a huge difference in the world, as well as doing what you love with people you love.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about the clients that you're working with, and I suppose, why do they even seek you out in the first place? Because, as you said before, asking for help can be quite difficult, but sometimes we all need a bit of help, right? We all need a bit of help to take us from where we maybe feel like we've hit the ceiling, we're stuck, we can't move forward. Yeah. Why would they seek you out in the first place, and then what is it that you offer to them?
Yeah, I think the conversations that I'm having with people, I really relate with people that just are quite open and honest and wanting support. The type of people that reaching out, it's primarily word of mouth. There's like once one person, and then the conversation sort of starts. So there's a lot of just straight up support and advice. I love getting behind teams. I'm quite humble, and I'm not the front of the stage person. I'm from behind, supporting them, catching them where they're needed to be. I'm available. That's the other part. I love seeing the successes and small wins and touch base in between the times with the clients that we work with. Geographically around the region here, there's so many fantastic businesses and founders that have actually created a business, and fast forward now half a dozen years, they've got 50, 60, 70 people in their business and still trying to actually put the processes and structures in. So there's a lot of organisations that I'm working with now that are founder-led organisations, and I think the other part of it is the variety of industries as well. It's a real mix of services and manufacturing, and there's no sort of common thread as far as the industries that I'm working with, which is what I love, and connecting the pieces across different industries as well, because it all comes back to people. Let's be honest, that's it all comes back to how you're managing and nurturing and caring for your team. That's the biggest common thread, regardless of the industry.
Yeah, and I think I think you said it. As people who kind of go into business, you often find that they've grown organically. Their team has grown organically, and then they feel like they've kind of hit a ceiling because they just don't know how to move past what's grown organically into the areas they want to go into. And I think that's where EOS really comes into its own, is giving you that structure, that discipline, that accountability to actually help you plan for the future and move forward.
Yeah. I think allowing the owners to actually let go of the vine as well. A lot of people, they're still grappling and not able to sort of hand off certain tasks or roles, and allow that sort of next level of their managers or supervisors to actually elevate, from there, and give the owners or the visionaries or integrators of the business, capacity to actually, lift the business up. That's another factor of working through the accountability chart exercise, where you've actually got that ability to, share the roles and responsibilities and making sure that it's clear. There was one business owner that hadn't had a holiday or a substantial holiday for, over a dozen years, and sitting in a visionary integrator and an operational seat as well. And, working through that exercise, we went through and, swapped him out some seats, and, over a period of time, it wasn't a magic pill that happened overnight, as you know.
No, yes.
Yeah, it was that sort of delegation process that we went through over sort of, 6 or so months. And, he shot me an email over a Christmas saying that he'd actually had his first holiday, without switching off for a long time. So it was a great example about how it can actually impact and change. So, yeah.
I think that's really awesome. Well done. Yeah, I think that it's interesting, isn't it? It's one of the things I've really loved about EOS is that this whole concept of visionary and integrator, I think that often in your own business, we end up playing both roles, and we don't understand there's a need to have somebody else to actually step in. And the accountability chart is very much about giving you an understanding of where the business is at and what all the seats are for the future. And then you can see how many hats you're wearing. And once you see how many hats you're wearing, it can be a bit of a wake-up moment in terms of, wow, okay, this can't continue. So that's when you can start to actually really delegate. For people who perhaps haven't gone through the process, just use your own words to describe to me, what the accountability chart is, what it does for the business, how you've seen it work for the businesses you've worked with.
Yep. So the accountability chart, it differs considerably from a traditional organisation chart. It looks at the ideal structure for the organisation for the coming 6 to 12 months. So, if you're building I'd describe it, if you're building the business from tomorrow onwards, what would be the ideal way that you would actually build the pieces of the business, taking out the people for a moment? What is the ideal structure? And we sort of go through an exercise where you break that down into, typically 3 components to start off with: sales and marketing, finding a customer and, converting them from a prospect through to validated customer, operations, so where the actual product or service is delivered, and then there's a finance component as well. And we tailor that towards what the organisation needs, and that might split up into 3 to 5 seats typically across a leadership team.
So the main functions of the business that are required.
What are the pieces of the business that are actually are needed? And then we look at as you said, the differences between a visionary and an integrator. Two very different roles, and really important to make sure that they're defined closely. So the integrator is someone who beats the drum of the organisation. They're clearing roadblocks for people on the leadership teams, general manager, COO, the titles are sort of interchangeable, but the actual role there is almost like looking at actually just getting things done with the organisation and holding it all.
And holding it all together, right? Yeah. Making sure that we're not going off on tangents and bright, shiny lights and bright, shiny objects, yeah.
Well, and if you think about that from a visionary perspective, I've known some amazing visionaries. They have, 200 ideas before breakfast, but they sort of, if they were in the seat of the integrator, the business is going down one path this week, and the next minute there's another idea that sort of comes back next week, and we're, into another sort of part. So, yeah, that's where organisations, and I've seen it, have had whiplash essentially because they don't know which way you're going, and having that clarity between the actual two roles is really important. But I think what that does, providing that transparency and expectation of, what, and also autonomy, once people know what's expected of them, I do believe that, people want to actually come to work and have a fulfilled, be successful in their role. Quite often that comes from, when they're not appearing to be, successful, but it probably comes from a point of also not having clarity and transparency on what's expected of them as well. So, if you're giving people the tools and saying this is your role, how what we expect out of you and vice versa, so what you expect from the business, you can have mutual wins. I think sometimes when people don't know exactly what's expected of them, that's when they might be spending time in other areas that may not be what the actual business needs, and that's the whole process of that transparency and setting up exactly what's actually needed, of them as an employee and also a member of a purpose-led business.
Okay, cool. So I always ask guests, what are your kind of 3 top tips or tools, things that you've learned, things you wish you knew when you were running your business, whatever it might be. What would be the 3 things you would love to share, Ryan, with the listeners?
I've probably got some tips, knowing that I'm not fully meeting them myself, to be honest. So I
love that. Yeah, good.
There's a lot of things. So I think, accepting help, that's probably number one. And I said earlier, if people are willing to help you, and also seeking out help when you think you need it. There's times as business owners we think we'll just keep powering on and keeping it going, whilst we know that we're probably either out of our depth or, maybe starting to sink a little bit, heads getting, the water line's just creeping over the head. So, probably tip 1 is, accepting help or seeking help when you need it.
Can I just explore that a little bit further too? I mean, so when let's just say we are feeling a bit overwhelmed, we're feeling like it's all getting a bit too much. How do you even reach out for help? And I know that you said that you went to your lecturer at uni and that was somebody there. But if you don't have a lecturer at uni, what would you suggest people actually do?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think there's so many different opportunities for, groups and advisory boards and other, I won't call them networking groups. Yeah, peer groups. Areas where you've got, industry forums. There's so many different aspects of where you can actually seek help now. Chambers of Commerce, EO, Entrepreneurs Organisation is a great network, sort of group for business owners. And I think even just within actual colleagues and suppliers as well. So you'd be surprised on many times that, it's not a competitive sort of arrangement. And I think you'd be surprised as soon as you start asking for help or just teasing out ideas or fall where that actually can come from. So
perfect. Love it. Okay, cool. Yep. Number 2.
Probably and this is the one that I'm even now saying that I know that I don't follow myself, but accepting that it's okay for time away from the business for yourself. So self-care time. So, that's, allowing yourself, permission and not feeling that guilt when you do take time out of the business. With whatever that means for you, that's obviously individual for, everyone's different of what their time away means, whether that's, activities, gym, mindfulness, meditation, sports, fishing, reading, time with family. I mean, it's just not feeling that guilt when you actually do take that time out of the business. I've got better at it, but I'm probably like a 6 out of 10, compared to what I could be. So,
And actually, that's a really good point. I love that. I think actually having some kind of scale where you can go, hey, look, none of us is perfect. We've all got room to improve. But being able to say on that scale of 1 to 10, where do you sit? And we all go up and down as well, right? I think at the moment, I'm probably feeling like that's probably about a 5 out of 10 for me. But I know there's been times it's been an 8 out of 10. So I think using scales like that to go, actually, where am I at? What could I do to improve it? But you're absolutely right. I mean, if you don't, it's like Gino talks about it in the EOS Life, and he talks about managing your energy. It's like a glass of water that has got some dirt in it. If you're continuously moving, which is being in the business all the time, that glass of water is continuously cloudy. It's not until you actually kind of take some time out and let the dirt settle that you get clarity of what's going on, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I've started scheduling, time in the calendar and putting it on my own personal scorecard. How much time I'm actually spending doing that, knowing that I'm not quite where I need to be, but I know that I feel better after I do. So, but the glass of water is a great visualisation that it is just murky and muddy, and you just need to let time to help it settle, and then you can, you get clarity on that. Yeah.
It's the oxygen mask concept, right? If you're not looking after yourself, then how can you possibly help others?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, cool. And tip number 3.
I think the tip number 3 is probably really within that connection to the people in your business as well. Thinking about what's meaningful for them, knowing that you're, providing a support, but they're an opportunity, but that's goes both ways. I think some people are looking at purely career progression. Some are looking at, commercial returns. Some are looking at time and balance. Some are looking at education. So really that sort of connection to the people in your business, and coming from a point of actually caring, not just saying you're caring and, not demonstrating. So I think people see through that, quite easily, and making sure you've got that ability to actually work out what's important for your people, and providing those opportunities. And if you can't do it immediately, explaining and providing that sort of pathway that sort of shows that someone can actually, you can both reach sort of mutual outcomes. So,
And I think one of the tools that EOS has for that, those quarterly conversations with people are really important, and it's not a formal, structured performance review, but it's just having a conversation about what's working, what's not working, where are you headed, what do you want to do? As you said, being able to set expectations around what's possible, what's not, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think most people understand that, as long as they're, provided the opportunity, you can have the informal discussions, but and people can see progress and changes, or at least just understand if things can't happen. I think most people are reasonable to understand that. Look back the last few years, it's been a bit of a tumultuous sort of time for everyone, and people are recovering and coming back. But I think where it gets sort of astray is when there's no conversations, or there's that sort of superficial level of conversation. I think people just appreciate hearing the truth and also understanding it from that perspective. So, depth of connection is probably the third tip that I've really found that, and that's satisfying on both fronts, allows you to actually have deeper connection with people, but also, they're having a better experience and, mutual outcomes, which is what I try to do in all sort of conversations, and it's not just a one-sided street really. So,
that's fantastic. Okay, Ryan, pleasure to talk to you as always. I want to know now from people who are listening in who might kind of go, hey, look, I could do with some help. I'd love to have a chat with Ryan. Tell me a little bit about what your ideal kind of client looks like, and then where people can actually find you.
Yeah, sure. Look, my ideal client, I work between Melbourne, Sydney, Northern Rivers, and also Brisbane. So, yeah, there's a fair bit of travel that's involved. I love working with sort of founder-led organisations that are getting to a stage now that they're just they're working out what's next for them. So, the ideal sort of market that I've been, I don't have a specific industry. There's a range of different industries that we work with, but yeah, finding me through LinkedIn or the EOS microsite are the two main locations, which is off the EOS worldwide website.
Yep.
But yeah,
We'll pop that link in the actual. Yep.
But yeah, really just people that are, needing help and wanting sort of that level of support and someone sort of in their corner to help them. That's where my sort of ideal work comes from, is really making sure that I can, get in with the team. I love being involved with the businesses and helping in a genuine way. So.
And as of course, as EOS implementers, we offer that opportunity to kind of spend 90 minutes with us and just understand the EOS model, the EOS tools, and make sure there's a real fit as well for the person you want to work with. So they can contact you and book in for that 90-minute meeting, right?
Yeah, I've actually got 2 today, so I'm looking forward to
excellent.
Sharing some time with some people, and it's going to be fun. So, and I think that's the whole point. It's just that awareness and understanding about what EOS is and how it can help them. So, and that's what I love doing is sharing that experience with people.
You and me both. That's great. Hey, look, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you as always. Look forward to seeing you in Sydney tomorrow or Wednesday, whatever it is. Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks for having me, Debra. Much appreciated. So, yeah.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.